Skinny, let's start off with our Bengals and NFL preview. We've been talking about this for a while, so I don't know that there's like a great place to start in terms of the Bengal season preview conversation, but I think we've addressed a lot of issues over the last few months and the things that we're concerned about with this team. What's the biggest one, in your opinion? What is the Bengals' biggest issue going into this season?
It's a great question. You can certainly point to the guards because you got a rookie starting on one spot and a guy who didn't have a great preseason, Lucas Patrick, at the other spot. It could be who's going to add pass rush juice other than Trey Hendrickson because they wasn't added last year, and you were hoping that see more in camp from Miles Murphy, and Joseph Osai had an okay camp, and Shamar Stewart had a really good camp, but most of that came against second teamers. And I just think the overall is the defense. Will the defense be better under Al Golden? The personnel is pretty much the same, not totally. I mean, you drafted Shamar Stewart in the first round. You drafted Demetrius Knight. You added TJ Slayton in free agency, but I think they're counting on Al Golden to be a difference maker. The question, I guess, would be, Rick, how big of a difference maker? Is it difference maker enough to not lose games 44-41? Is it big difference maker enough to get you to mid-pack in the NFL defensively after they ranked 25th in points allowed and yards allowed last year? It's funny, as bad as that defense was, and I put it in that context, it felt like they were the worst defense in the league, right? But then you look up and they finished 25th. It's not good. I'm not here to soft shoot and tell you it was good, but it felt like it was almost epically bad. And so could it take the step to being 18th in both? And if so, I think the sky's the limit for this team. It stunned me yesterday. I was at practice and I was talking to Jay Morrison. I looked over, I said, man, there's only a couple guys on the rehab field. Those are the injured reserve guys. I said, I'm not even sure anybody's going to show up on the injury report. And as I was walking out, one of the media relations people said to me, he goes, hey, because I was going to my car, and he said, hey, I just want to let you know injury report's going to come out in 15 minutes. He goes, you're not going to believe this. I said, I'm going to guess there's nobody on it. He goes, I can't believe that. I said, so there's really no excuse heading into this game. You've had a full Joe Burrow training camp, a full Jamar Chase training camp. You've got everybody healthy, which that's been part of the issue for the slow starts is a lot of it's Joe Burrow. It's literally been every year of something with Joe Burrow. And then the one year it was a long snapper who got hurt in a game that cost you. So there's no excuse not to get off to a good start.
You talked about basically all the issues there. Would you say the defense is the biggest one?
Yeah, it has to be, right? I mean, that's why Lou Anarumo got fired. That's why you brought in Al Golden, was to fix some of this. And you didn't give him a lot of new toys to play with to fix it. Like I said, you gave him some, but I think you're counting on him to be able to fix it. I wrote a story yesterday, it's on local12.com, of why he is optimistic that his defense can be better than what it showed in the preseason. And he talked about the last couple of Thursday practices. One of them was a 51-play scrimmage where he got to call the defense the way he wants to call it, and the offense only scored one touchdown. And then this past Thursday, I don't think it was a scrimmage, but in practice, they ran a lot of their first and second down defenses, and he got to call it the way he wanted, and he liked what he saw. So I think he's optimistic it's going to be better. We'll find out on Sunday.
Here's what I want to know. I would say the defense is the biggest concern for me. More specifically, the secondary is my biggest concern. I'm very concerned about the cornerbacks. I'm even more concerned about the safeties. Who do I get to blame when the secondary stinks? Because they were supposed to address that this offseason. They made the decision not to address it at all whatsoever, despite asking one of their starting safeties, who's now like the leader in the clubhouse, to be maybe their best secondary player, to take a pay cut. Who is to blame for that when it doesn't work out? When the secondary stinks, they can't cover anyone, they can't tackle anybody. Do we point to Al Golden and say, you thought these guys were good enough? Do we point to Duke Tobin? Whose decision was that to stick with the secondary they got?
Yeah, probably a combination of that, mostly Duke Tobin. I mean, he's the de facto general manager. Those are usually the roster builders. And then you go to your coordinators and or position coaches for some advisement, mostly the coordinators. So, I would think it does fall on Duke Tobin. I mean, this is the same guy who, said that he didn't think they had a guard problem. And all of a sudden it looked up and you're signing Dalton Reisner the week before the season starts because you know what you had? You had a guard problem.
That's a point that is curious to me too. Dalton Reisner was available this entire time.
Yep.
So we didn't have to be a last minute ad where he's trying to get up to speed and get ready, and maybe he's ready to play the first couple of weeks. Maybe he's behind the eight ball because of all that. Why would they wait if they knew their offensive line was an issue and they knew Dalton Reisner was available and they might sign him? Why would you wait until the last possible moment?
I think one, Cordell Volson getting hurt forced their hand to add depth. That's one thing, and that injury came, just a couple weeks ago. The other one then is Dalton Reiser had a couple of other suitors. He didn't make any other visits, but Seattle was apparently interested. Pittsburgh was apparently interested. And then you get into contract machinations of, he wants a certain number. You're willing to offer a certain number. And then when push comes to shove, he gets desperate and he's probably willing to sign more for your price. And I'm not telling you it's perfect. And it probably could have been done earlier. But I think a lot of times in this, we want to point the finger at the Bengals, and that's fine. I get that they're culpable in this. But listen, if you're offering a number that you feel is fair, and he's starting to look at other teams and go, well, I want this, and then they come back and go, no, we're not going to give that to you. And finally, he comes back and goes, okay, I'll take your offer, Bengal. I mean, that's how this stuff works a lot of times.
Sure. I would need to know what the savings was there because it's not like it was sprung on the Bengals at the last minute that they need an offensive lineman. I mean, you can point to the Volson stuff, but we knew before that they were in trouble on the offensive line.
I don't know if they knew that or if they wanted to admit that.
Well, that's the issue right there then, right? Like they thought these guys might be good enough in the last minute. It's like, oh no, despite the fact that everyone in the world told us we needed to fix our offensive line depth, we didn't do it, and now we need to. That would be my biggest concern. But
it's fair.
Going back to the defense real quick, because we talked about that being the biggest concern. Will the defense, in your opinion, be much worse, slightly worse, about the same, slightly better, or much better?
I think slightly better. I do think you're going to get more pass rush juice from the opposite end and wherever they put Shamar Stewart. I think a more fresh BJ Hill will be more effective. I think you've added some athleticism with Demetrius Knight. And while it may look wonky early in the season for him, I think as the season goes on, he's going to get it. I do think, listen, your three starting corners, 2 are second-round picks, 1's a first-round pick. There is raw talent there. Dax Hill was playing at a high level until he got hurt early last season. Cam Taylor-Britt, honestly, going into last season, I thought he was on the cusp of being a Pro Bowl player, and then he wasn't. And then all of a sudden, late last year, he kind of rectified himself. And DJ Turner has just great raw speed, and we saw it in a couple of camp practices. The one where he had the 5 pass breakups against Joe Burrow in the first team. You're like, wow. So there is some talent there that you can hang your hat on the talent. Now, whether they play consistently or play up to that level of talent is still open to debate. But you do have some guys back there who you have reason to believe in.
I think my hope for them is that by middle of the season and later, they are what you're talking about. They are slightly better than last year. I don't have hopes that they're going to be much improved from last season, but I do think the youth, a little more athleticism, a couple of guys that might be more dynamic at their positions could make this team overall better by the midway point once they've gelled, they feel like they understand Al Golden's system and what he wants to do. But I have major concerns about the first several weeks and how this is going to look with new guys, young guys, a new system, a new defensive coordinator. I think there's the potential for it to be worse than last year, quite honestly, at least for the first few weeks.
But I expect a better early season Joe Burrow. I just do, because he got through camp, because he played some preseason games, and he felt good about how he played in those preseason games. And they did score 4 touchdowns in 5 drives that he played in the preseason. So I don't expect a 16-10 game like they had last year against New England, because they were trying to feel Joe Burrow's wrist out and he didn't want to rip it because he didn't want to make mistakes. I think you're going to see this offense hit the ground running and pouring on points from the get-go, even though this is a pretty good Cleveland Browns defense.
Okay, so let's go in that direction next. The slow start thing, all they're doing this offseason to avoid that slow start has been kind of the storyline that's dominated training camp. How convinced are you that they're in a better spot to avoid a slow start?
I'm more convinced because, again, you've got Burrow's gotten through a full camp and got preseason snaps under his belt where he hasn't had that before. I mean, his rookie year, was the COVID year. That whole season was wonky, and especially the training camp. Then the next camp, he's coming off the injury, and if you remember, one of the early storylines was him in practice kind of seeing ghosts, where he was afraid of the run. Even though he couldn't get hit, he was scared to death of it, understandably so. And then, okay, things are going okay in 2022, and then lo and behold, he has an appendectomy. And then in that 2022 opener, when he throws 4 interceptions and fumbles, they still should have won until Clark Harris, the long snapper, gets hurt, and then they have a backup long snapper who can't snap. And then comes the next year where he hurts his calf in training camp and isn't right for the first few weeks of the season. And then last year, the whole thing was, is the risk really going to be okay? I don't think he knew or they knew until he finally got involved in some games. So it's always been something goofy. There's been no goofy this time around. There's nothing goofy. There's Joe Burrow getting 2 games and 5 series under his belt of preseason snaps that I think is beneficial for him. He wanted it. He got it. He thrived. He's been great in camp. He's had a chance. Last camp, he didn't get a chance to work with Jamar Chase, right? Because Jamar Chase is standing on the sideline with a hold-in. This time around, Jamar Chase is fully engaged in camp. T. Higgins is fully engaged in camp. And there's no reason, like I said, there's no reason for this offense to not hit the ground running.
I think everyone's in that boat with Burrow. They believe that he's fine. He's going to be awesome. He looked like the MVP last year. And obviously, like you said, there haven't been issues for him to deal with this offseason. So everyone's expecting him to hit the ground running. But we talked about the offensive line that's in front of him. So here's my other question is, where does this offensive line rank on the list of offensive lines that have protected Joe Burrow so far?
I think it's probably the best one. I thought it would have been.
I think you can make that argument. Yeah.
But Kappa got hurt and played hurt all year, and he just wasn't the same guy. And I know it's easy to crap on his performance level. The guy played hurt. And he played hurt, A, because it shows you how tough the kid was, and B, there wasn't a much better alternative. A healthy whoever else wasn't a better alternative. Yeah, there are questions about Lucas Patrick. But I know Ted Karras has told a couple of colleagues of mine he's the best run blocking guard he's played with. Now, it's not pass blocking, mind you, but it is run blocking, and they do want to lean on the run game a little bit more. And all I've seen from Dylan Fairchild, listen, he's not seen an exotic blitz yet. It's going to be new to him. He has not had a Myles Garrett line up over him yet. And I'm going to guess Myles Garrett's going to look up and down that line and go, I'm going to take the rookie on this snap. I'm going to take this dud at right guard the next snap, and then I'll go back to end play for a little bit. So he's not seen that yet, but Joe Burrow has done some really good things behind some not so good offensive lines. And I know everybody looks at the raw sack numbers, and we've talked about this. I'd be willing to tell you, Rick, again, I have no analytics for this. This is only anecdotal. I'll bet you half the sacks he took last year were on him, and he'd be the first to admit that they were on him. And he's willing to take a 3rd and 8 sack to try to buy some more time. Okay, he got sacked. Yeah, it sucks. Joe got hit. Joe wanted to take the hit because he was trying to buy more time. Who's that on? That's not on the offensive line. Again, it wasn't a great offensive line by any stretch. I mean, they were last in the NFL in pass rush win rate. Again, Some of that is, when does that pass rush loss occur? Does it occur after 4 seconds? Does it occur in the first 2 seconds? I think that number is a good number, but I don't think it always tells the whole story either.
Well, I think they do have a cutoff on that number, right? Like it's within the first 3 seconds or something. So yeah, I mean, it accounts for what you're talking about. And to your point, the sack number means nothing to me with Joe Burrow at quarterback, because he has openly commented many times that, like, yeah, if it's 3rd and long, what difference is a 4th and 10 situation or a 4th and 17 situation if we're going to punt anyway, right?
Yes.
Like, I'll go ahead and take the chance that I'm Joe Burrow and I can create magic in that situation and win a game for us, as opposed to sacrificing 7 yards in a punt situation. I have no issue with the sack numbers, but the offensive line also sucked, in addition to the fact that he gets sacked too often, and the pass rush win rate, loss rate, whatever, will show that as well. I think that's the big concern, is just don't get him killed. Don't have him taking blindside shots before he has a chance to protect himself and move around a little bit. If it happens on him, so be it. I look at the offensive line thing as, like you said, I think you can make the argument this is the best offensive line that he's played behind. But I also look at it from the perspective of, but that team that went to the Super Bowl with a crappy offensive line had a much better defense. It had some more experienced guys around it. It was a team in a different spot that wasn't going to be relying on Joe Burrow and the offense to do everything for them like this team is.
Yeah, I mean, defense carried that team in the playoffs. I mean,
and the kicking.
And the kicking game, yeah. No,
it was like a special teams and defense run, to be quite honest. And Joe Burrow making big plays when you needed him to, obviously. But it's just a different situation this year. So as much as I think I can be slightly optimistic about the offensive line maybe being as good as he's had, and he's done great things, obviously, with worse ones, I am still concerned because I think this offense is going to be asked to do more than any Joe Burrow offense has been asked to do.
Yeah, that's probably true. But I think it's more than capable of that. And to your point, Orlando Brown Jr. didn't play great last year, and obviously he was hurt. But if he even comes close to the Pro Bowl year guy that he was, I mean, you got a really good left tackle. And Amarius Mims, I thought, was great in training camp. I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do this season. And those are your 2 bookends, right? I mean, if the guard gets beat on occasion, you know what else can step up? That's where a running back can step up and help too. So I think this offense has a chance to be really special.
Give me the player you think will overachieve or surprise, and the player you think will disappoint.
That's a great question. I don't know if this would be overachieve, but I've got him on pace to set a Bengals season record. I think Chase Brown's going to have a great year. I mean,
everyone is saying, everyone, the fantasy people are obsessed with him. The national people are like, Chase Brown is a sleeper to explode this year. What is so exciting about Chase Brown this year as opposed to last year?
The fact that when he finally got a chance to start those 8 games when Zach Moss got hurt, he averaged 112 yards from scrimmage. And if you multiply that times a 17-game season, that's almost 2,000 yards from scrimmage. And the Bengals single season record for yards from scrimmage is like 1,770 by James Brooks. All he has to do is approach those numbers from last year. And he's added, apparently, we've seen it in camp, he's added to his route running tree where he's actually running some routes downfield. He's improved as a pass blocker. I don't know if he gets the amount of – now, he also averaged in that 8-game stretch 23.8 touches per game. I don't know with his body type if that's completely sustainable for a 17-game season.
Well, also with this offense, right? There's a lot of people to share the ball with.
Yeah, no, but yeah, and touches are also him catching the ball too. So some of that's
right.
Discussion. So I don't think that part's sustainable. But get him 20 touches and a little bit more yards per touch, and I still think he approaches those numbers. I think he's going to be spectacular as long as he stays healthy.
Yeah, I don't know that he'll get as many touches as everyone thinks he's going to, but I'd love to see it. I'd love to see him get the chance. I'm excited about it. I'm just curious. It seems like everyone is so high on him that it worries me a little bit.
Yeah, I just thought that 8-game stretch was like, okay, you finally found the juice in your running game. It's this guy. And that's when they started winning games too, when he got hot and was playing well.
What about the guy that might disappoint?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Logan Wilson. I hate to do it because I like the kid so much.
I like
he's
that
just
answer.
Been nothing but a solid pro, but he just didn't look the part in training camp or in preseason physically. And we've just you see that in this league, man. All of a sudden, it's not even age; it's just football age to some degree. Like all of a sudden, you're older and slower, and I don't know how that all of a sudden happens. I mean, you look at that guy. When he walks in the locker room or comes out of the shower and you look, good Lord, that dude he doesn't have an ounce of anything other than muscle on his body. How can he suddenly beat it? Well, he's had a bunch of injuries, little nagging ones at times, but they take their toll. And I hope I'm wrong on this because 2 years ago, I thought Logan Wilson was poised to be a Pro Bowl player. And all of a sudden, 2 years later, I'm talking about him as the guy that might be the one that disappoints. I just wonder if he struggles, how long the leash is, and then what do they do there? I can't imagine you put Barrett Carter and play 2 rookies, so it would have to be Oren Burks, but no offense to Oren Burks, and he did start in the Super Bowl last year for Philadelphia, but he wasn't a full-time starter. He wasn't a full-time starter for a reason, a backup for a reason, and a good backup. I mean, it's a guy if you want to plug in for a couple of games here and there and for a handful of snaps here and there, good backup to have. But I just worry that Logan Wilson just isn't the same guy he was.
Yeah, I think that's a good answer. That's definitely one that I'm concerned about as well, because, man, if Logan Wilson really takes a step back this year, all the issues we've talked about with this defense, you start worrying about that linebacking core even more. It becomes a real problem.
And listen, Demetrius Knight, they love him. He's going to start. I thought maybe he was on shaky ground a little bit with his preseason performance. But again, maybe that's just getting some cobwebs out under fire. And again, the more snaps he gets, the better he gets. But he is still a rookie, and he's going to take some false steps, and he's going to make some wonky plays because he's a rookie. You don't want the guy playing alongside of him to have issues too.
What type of heat do you think Zac Taylor is facing going into this year? If they were to get off to a 0-2 or 1-3 start, how much does that change things for him? Or do you think he actually starts to feel real pressure?
They've dug out of those before, so he's pretty good at figuring out ways to keep the team together and keep chugging forward and making playoff runs. But I do think this, if the slow start leads to you not making the playoffs again, then I think there should be a lot of heat. I think 3 straight years in the Joe Burrow era of not making the playoffs, and one of those years is tainted because Joe broke the wrist, but they kind of survived that too because Jake Browning played so well. It was just other parts of the football team not living up. But I think at that point, 3 years in, and again, let's just assume Burrow gets through the whole year healthy. You go back-to-back years with Burrow going through full years healthy and not making the playoffs, I think that puts you on extremely thin ice. I don't know if it costs him his job completely because this is a very patient ownership group, but it puts you on thin ice.
I'm really hoping we do not have to have those conversations in like week 5, 6, 7.
No, and that's the thing. I know he even said it yesterday because I think somebody kind of asked that question about what pressure you feel. I can't remember what the exact wording of it was, but he talked about, that's what we're in this business for. And I think that's true to some degree, but also you're a human being, right? I mean, this is your livelihood. Does that make him coach differently? Probably not. I think he is a real process guy. Like he trusts his process, whether you like it or I like it or fans like it or not. So I think he really is a true process guy. But yeah, I mean, you get off to a slow start, you're going to feel that internal pressure, I would guess.
I want Zac Taylor to succeed. Like I
don't think you're thinking anything opposite. I think it's a fair question to ask though.
Yeah, I mean, like he seems like an even-keeled guy. He seems like a legitimately good guy for an NFL head coach. He seems somewhat normal. Like I like the things that he does around the community. I like the way he talks, the way he carries himself. All of that stuff would be great to just be able to put full confidence in him. And what he did with the Super Bowl run and then getting back to the AFC Championship game the next year was awesome for this franchise. That is incredible. But yeah, I mean, you got Joe Burrow, man. You have to do more. And I'd love to just see him do that this year and then be able to say, okay, he's the guy. He clearly knows what he's doing. He's got the franchise moving in the right direction. But you're right. If he gets off to another slow start and they miss the playoffs, there's no way you can feel confident about bringing this guy back. That's not to say the Bengals won't do it, but from a fan's perspective, there's no way you feel good about next season.
And they gave him the chance to make a change at a key position on his staff at the defensive coordinator and a couple position coaches. So you got the chance to do that. And maybe that allows you another 2-year window because you've changed that staff up. But you don't get to do that again. I mean, if this defense is bad, it probably won't be on Al Golden. You could probably point the finger way more at Duke Tobin, but you're not going to get the chance to change these guys again. You got the one swing at that. So now it falls on you, right or wrong.
Yep. All right, Skinny, the Bengals win total for the season, according to Vegas, is 9.5. And you can get a better deal if you're willing to take the under and as opposed to the over here. With the Bengals schedule, looking through it, do we run through here and go game by game? Do you want to kind of give me the tough spots where you think they might falter? How do you want to do this? Give me your prediction on the schedule.
Yeah, so I did it in my prediction column, 11-6, and I always do it this way. The game by game stuff I think it's hard to do because the team you're picking them against in week 5 probably has 6 guys hurt and you got 3 guys hurt and it's not the same matchup that you see right now. So I just kind of do it in generalities of likely wins, likely losses, and what I call swing games. Every year I've done this for a decade plus. Every year, one of the likely wins, at least one of the likely wins, turns into a loss. And one of the likely losses I have turns into a win. Now, last year, unfortunately, there were 3 likely wins I had that turned into losses. Those games were, I got to find this here. I had it just a second ago. Yeah, so I had the following games last year as likely wins, and they turned into losses. The New England game, the Washington game, and the Pittsburgh game at home. The New England game was just goofy, right? Washington, we didn't realize how good they were and how good Jaden Daniels was. And the Pittsburgh game at home, that was the famous Jermaine Pratt where they missed so many tackles, and he talked about quick game and what missed tackles, and that was just an ugly loss. And I had one likely loss last year that turned into a win. I had them losing at Cleveland, and they went up to Cleveland thanks to a Charlie Jones kickoff return for a touchdown, and they won that game. And I had them going 4-3 in swing games, and that's exactly what they went. Unfortunately, like I said, 3 of the likely wins turned into losses, and I had them picked 11-6 last year, and they end up going 9-8. So I got 11-6 this year, and here we go. The likely wins I've got are the Jacksonville game at home, Pittsburgh game at home, Jets game at home, Chicago game at home, New England game at home, Arizona game at home, and Cleveland game at home. 7 likely wins, in my opinion. I only have 3 likely losses: at Green Bay, at Baltimore, and at Buffalo. So that takes us to 7 swing games. And I can easily be convinced they go 4-3 in these swing games to get to 11-6. The opener at Cleveland, because it's the opener, their history in openers, on the road. At Minnesota in a couple of weeks. It'd be interesting to see what J.J. McCarthy looks like the first couple of weeks. If he's, looks like a guy who's not ready for it after coming off the injury, then again, that's a swing game I can be talked into. The game the following week, the Monday nighter at Denver, the Detroit game at home, at Pittsburgh, because it's on the road. I don't think the Steelers are good. I've seen people making playoff predictions for them, and I know that Mike Tomlin's never had a losing record. I just don't think they're very good, but I could be wrong. The other swing games are the Baltimore game at home and at Miami. So if your push came to shove here, and I told you what the likely wins would be out of that, or the games I think they win, I do think they win at Cleveland. I think they win against Detroit because it's at home. I think they beat Baltimore because it's at home. And then you're looking at Minnesota, at Pittsburgh, at Miami. Can you still?
I like at Minnesota.
Yeah, and that's a winnable. I think it's a winnable game too. So it's in the swing game. I could be talked into 5-2 in those swing games, but I swear, Rick, almost every year I do this, I come up with about 7 swing games, and every year they go 4-3, and so it's like I'm just going to stick with that formula of one of the likely wins. One of my 7 likely wins becomes a loss. One of my 3 likely losses becomes a win because it's just the track record always suggests that, and then 4-3 in swing games gets you to 11-6.
Yeah, no, I mean that sounds about right. I mean, I think Bengals fans will be happy to hear that. That feels like a fairly optimistic view of how things are going to go, which, I think we're all trying to get on that boat for sure. The weeks 13 through 16 stretch is brutal, Skinny, where you have Ravens twice and the Bills and the Dolphins all there over 4 weeks. Is that the part of the
schedule
and the Bills circled?
Yeah, and the Bills and the Dolphins on the road to boot. I mean, it's not just
right.
The Bills and the Dolphins. I don't think the Dolphins are going to be very good, and by that time, if Tua's hurt, they're going to be a train wreck. And Mike, what the hell's his name? I'm drawing a complete blank. Mike McDaniel. He's suddenly kind of fallen as the guy that's maybe an early fire candidate. So who knows there? That's I put it in the swing game category. But if things go wonky from a health standpoint for Tua and suddenly they're just the team that I think people think they're going to be, which isn't very good, that's a swing game that I think could turn into a likely win. But yeah, that stretch that stretch is brutal.
What about the open? It's at Browns, home against Jaguars, at Vikings, at Broncos. How do you think they fare over there? And then the Lions in the 5th game.
Right.
How do you think they fare to open the season? Because that's going to be such a big focus.
I think you can get off to that 3-0 start, and then you just take a swing at it in that Monday night, or that's going to be a crazy environment. It's on the road. Monday nights, those are always tough. But maybe you've built enough confidence to then go on the road and win that game. I would say this. Coming out of the first 2 games, not being 2-0 would be highly disappointing.
I think that's right. I have major concerns about the defense giving up a ton of points to one of those teams and just looking dreadful, but I agree. You got to go 2-0 in those.
Yeah, and I picked playoff teams in both leagues. Believe it or not, I've got the Jaguars being a wild card team. I think they've improved their roster, and Liam Cohen will make a difference with Trevor Lawrence. I almost put New England in there. They're kind of everybody's sheep dark horse pick to make the playoffs, but I took the Jaguars as a wild card team over them.
What are your AFC North predictions?
I got the Ravens going 12-5. I think they have the best roster in the AFC, maybe the NFL. I could probably be convinced Philly's roster is better, and it probably is. But I think the Baltimore roster, I don't find a flaw in it. They got big play receivers. I know Isaiah Likely's hurt at the moment, but they got tight ends. Obviously, they got Derrick Henry. Lamar's a unicorn. Defensively, they're really good. They had a Malachi Starks to the back end. They got Kyle Hamilton. I mean, not just that defense it's just a great roster. I mean, you got to just call it what it is. So I had the Ravens going 12-5, the Bengals going 11-6, the Steelers going 7-10, the Browns going 5-12. I'm not going to bore you with all the playoff predictions I made, but I do have Baltimore beating Green Bay in the Super Bowl. I mean, that's how much I think of the Ravens. I hate to do it. I know Bengals fans hate that, especially when you're in this town to pick against your team. I mean, I even wrote in my column, I could be convinced that in the AFC, the second best team is the Bengals.
But people may not like that you're picking an AFC North team to win the Super Bowl. But I think going back to, 2 or 3 years ago when everyone was picking the Bengals to be the Super Bowl winner or be in the Super Bowl, and it went terribly wrong, I don't think any Cincinnati people are upset about the fact that they're not getting picked to win Super Bowls anymore. I saw
a lot of national. I watch Good Morning Football, and I like the show because I have a crush on Jamie Erdahl for starters. But I do like the show. And so they all did their playoff picks. None of them picked the Bengals to even make the playoffs.
Wow.
That stunned me.
That is, but the AFC North, to your point about it being so stacked and Baltimore being so good, I saw the top 100 player rankings in the NFL, which the players vote on. Mm-hmm. 5 of the top 10 players were all in the AFC North.
I can see that.
That kind of tells you what you're looking at this year as a Bengals fan. You can be one of the 3 best teams in football and still be in real trouble.
That's a fact.
All right. Any other thoughts on the Bengals, NFL storylines going into the season? What else do you want to get in here before we talk about it?
I don't think there's any excuse. I do think the Browns defense is for real. I mean, they still have Myles Garrett, who was one of those top 10 guys, I'm assuming. I didn't see the list, but I'm assuming he was one of those guys. Denzel Ward's a top-notch cornerback. But, I mean, it's Joe Flacco. It's 40-year-old freaking Joe Flacco, man. I don't care how bad your defense is. And again, this offense has no excuse. There's no Joe Burrow limited by his calf. There's no, Jamar Chase, you find out he's going to play the opener an hour and a half before the opener's played. And you don't know what Joe Burrow's risk. I mean, there's literally no excuse. You could argue, well, yeah, you're kind of unsettled at one. Okay, that's fine. Not every team in the NFL. So hell, Hakeem Adeniji, for God's sake, is starting for the Cowboys tonight as we do this game. I mean, that's where we are with offensive lines in the NFL.